But just to provide a really brief overview of the spiritual exercises, the kind of meta narrative of the story, I find can be sort of helpful because it really takes us through sort of the journey of salvation history in some sense. So we begin often our programs with the principle and foundation that we are created, very beginning. We are created by God and meant to be in relationship with God, to be ultimately to be fully alive. And so we use what helps us do that, and we avoid what doesn't. But ultimately praying for this sense of detachment, this sense of freedom to choose what most leads to this goal of being in relationship with God. That's the beginning, and then moving into then the rest of week 1, praying for this grace to know and to trust, to believe that we are loved unconditionally. So it's looking back at our life, noticing the times that we may have fallen short, the times that we've turned against God, our true self, against love, and yet God has been with us and God loves us unconditionally despite. And so with that, then we move into the second week of the exercises of, since there is a God who loves us unconditionally, we want to come to know, to draw close. And so it's journeying with Jesus, especially during the second week, to come to know, to love, and to follow Jesus in Jesus's ministry. And so using a lot of Ignatian contemplation, we have to see the different contemplations of the 2 standards, the 3 types of persons, 3 degrees of humility. So some of these will come across further in the program. And then moving into, the final part of the week 2 would be the election. So making a life choice of how am I going to respond, how am I going to live my life. And then getting into week 3 then to walk with Jesus in his suffering, to be with Jesus in his final moments of his passion. So to suffer with Jesus and to suffer with the Christ in the world, who is suffering in the world, and then in turn to allow Jesus and to allow God in all things to be with us in our suffering. And then it doesn't end with the death and the darkness, but it moves into week 4 of to be with Jesus, to be with the living Christ in his glory, in joy, and this finding God in all things, this ultimately to see ourselves interconnected with God, with all of creation, and so to go and to live that and to embrace that. So there's a brief overview of the spiritual exercises that we'll go into in more detail to some extent, although this is not going to be a formation on the spiritual exercises per se, but we'll certainly be covering many points of that.